All right. 3, 2, 1. All right, so today on Wiseman's Roundtable podcast, we're going to talk about the whys. Why do you do what you do on Whatnot? If you're a Whatnot seller, a 2-hour show is really an 8-hour involvement. Unless you have inventory built up and things are already listed everywhere in your shop, your literal physical shop, and your Whatnot shop. If everything's already in there, you don't have a bunch of lead up time. So if you're a big retailer or a small retailer like me, where you can add in the inventory and you can sit on it a while, it works out really well to load everything in as it comes in. If you are a small reseller, all right, or just somebody on Whatnot that's trying to gain a footing with the equipment they have on hand, you can't necessarily not load it in because there's an assumption there's new stuff being added all the time. So if you're small and new, you're adding new stuff all the time, and you don't have a large mass of stuff to draw from necessarily in your database in your Whatnot shop. While you might have 10 buildings full of stuff, if they're not in the Whatnot shop, they're not exposed to the Whatnot buyers. So if you've decided to get involved in this and you're doing this, then there's a matter of hours that are going into the production of this. Because even if you do a new product every 10 seconds, which is very efficient, some of the faster guys, especially over in knives and Pokemon cards, if you like fast-paced action, you want to get in on that. Knives sell fast, and Pokemon cards can sell fast. You do have to play the buck and go game, though. But why do you do what you do? So for me, we got started in magazines and military surplus, me and the big man, and we were Masonic brothers. And I got in it to get rid of a bunch of stuff that I had that I'd helped an estate by buying up. And then he got into it because he wanted to do some traveling and get to know some new things in his life. So that's when we did the gun shows. And then when we were told about Whatnot, we came over here. The reason why we have switched primarily, or I should say 100% to Whatnot, is because while eBay is good, Whatnot is what we were built for. We like we did. I like showing the products. I like making the jokes. I like having the social interaction. And you can't get that on eBay. All right. Now, once we were doing Whatnot to this level, we were both able to leave our jobs. Jacob left first. That's Big Man's real name. Big Man left first and went full time because he hated his job and couldn't do it. And then I was able to get out of government service when it was getting really nuts. Granted, I had a great boss, and probably the next 2 levels above me were awesome. But the top 4 levels in government were kind of weird over the last few years and going into these years. So I figured it's probably time for me to get while getting good. You know what I mean? So this allowed me to leave service and come out to here and run my own life and make my own decisions, and unfortunately learn my own lessons, like we learned when we were talking about healthcare earlier. Chad Will says you do an awesome job at it. Thank you, sir. We do try very hard. I believe don't know if Brian's still in here, but he had said once before, Big Man brought him in and I kept him here. So that just proved that we had the drive to do this kind of thing. So why do you do it? That was my reason. Your reason could probably be a lot different. First of all, I hope that you're either standing in a position of power, as they would say on a risk game, but if you're financially free, you don't have a bunch of payments, for things that you don't need on a daily or a monthly basis. So like utilities and mortgage. You can pay all that, and then you're pretty much financially free. As good as you're going to get in middle-class America. So if you're looking to add to whatever that income stream that makes you financially stable, there we go, financially stable, where you don't have all the extra payments, then this is definitely a good thing to do, but you need to look at what you do. I do military surplus. I can tell you it is a very niche thing. And if you want to do it full time, like we do it, it takes a lot more effort than you ever see. There is 6 hours of work for every 2 hours of show. And they do not occur in the same time. So the 4 hours of a pre-hour show, the 4 hours pre-show, pardon me, good golly, they are happening over a number of days for us because shipping comes in and items come in by the hundreds sometimes. And what we have found is that usually I was trying to buy 20 to 30 new SKUs every 2 weeks. So that was 20 or 30 products that didn't exist before. You know what I mean? They're not already in the inventory. They're going to be added in. And that's where bringing in the extra people had helped us a lot, because Big Man was able to do two to 3 hour shows twice a day, and then the back end. Now the back end for a 2 hour show depends on the money. If you go into a 2 hour show as a surplus dealer and you make $50 or bring in $50, there is a chance that there's probably 5 packages to 11 packages most. All right, because $50 is nothing in anything nowadays. And if you're in knives, that's probably not much at all. If you're in electronics, it ain't squat. So a normal yield for what I call a slow roll would be only $200 or $300 or maybe in a 2 hour daytime show. Well, that could translate to 15 to 20 packages. When you get up to the $700 to $1,000 area, you're starting to talk about 48 packages sometimes, depending on the money involved and whether you were selling bigs or smalls. When I sell bigs, those 20 packages, that's a lot of trips to the post office, in and out, in and out, in and out while you're there. So you have to consider all the costs that goes into it as a retailer getting into Whatnot. Now, as an individual getting into Whatnot, you can be lackadaisical about it if you want to, if it's not about making money. All right. But there is a chance you might not retain interest, but the interest you will retain is going to be good, interested people. I have a very niche market. Chris B writes, time is money. You daggone right about that. I have a very niche market. I think if I were more into knives, I would probably, me and Big Man probably could have made a big channel in knives, but it all keeps coming back to the bucking goes, and I'm just not down with it. So I've been trying different experiments and filming my results, and it was it's a mixed bag, and especially if you view things in a certain light. I'm gonna pause real quick and go grab a Sprite. And here we go. Look out, Tay-Tay, she gonna give you salmonella. It's a knife, that's right. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. So when you have that amount of hours invested in something, 4 hours before, 2 hours of a show. If you got 20 packages, that's an hour and a half at least. Even with my system, the Whatnot system takes time. When you sit down to process your packages, even if you use the order system that it provides, which is the very first one showed up at the bottom, and then they went up from there. Now, if that same person bought other things, usually their name only appears once, but there are some customers that choose priority only or get it to me the fastest. Whatever the selection is, I don't know. But they'll show up multiple times on there. And you'll get a feel for who they are. But 20 packages takes a long time. If you're selling big things, all right, things that are not in a box that you can just slap a label on, or if you are a repackager, like I put everything else in an external box to send it to you, regardless of whether or not it's big enough for me to send it to you alone. That's 20 things you gotta make sure are in the proper size box, and you have to take the measurements, and you have to do the weight and put it into the Whatnot system. Because if you do not do that for your customers, the post office will ask them for money when they go to deliver the package. And I mean, it's not mafia, because mafia has more respect than that, but you get what I'm saying. It's a disrespectful business practice, and nobody's gonna want to deal with you after that, if you know what I'm saying. Sorry, I'm not from Jersey or anything. That was the best I could do. But anyway, I really feel like it's a lot of time involved for the 2 hours you do. Now, how productive can you be in the 2 hours? Well, there's several frames of thought. If you're trying to make $1 million, I would say contact me about the amount, but there's an amount of money that you could probably spend up front and do buck and goes and be a success, as long as one of the things you did in that spend the money up front was hire some key people for some certain spots. Those are things that I fall short in. I can't afford to hire the people. But if you could hire the people to do a couple key jobs for you, and you had a certain amount of money in inventory to put down, you could probably do the buck and go game and win and potentially make $1 million. I don't think you'll make your $1 million in your first year, but I do think by the third or fourth year, you will have produced enough sales to make $1 million. But it's a scaling thing. You're not going to do it by yourself. Now, can you bring in $1 million by yourself? I don't think so. It took two of us at the rate that we were going in surplus to do 200,000 just on Whatnot. And I think it was 214 by the time the end of the year came, but it was 209 on December 6th. My total for December was short 16,000, so I'm probably around 214, 215, something like that. But anyway, you get my point. But that's two shows a day, 2 people, and then 2 background ladies in what I do. Now, obviously, if you're selling higher ticket merchandise, you can do more numbers than that and sell less goods. I think our average sale price at the beginning of the year last year was probably around $5 or $6, because we did do a lot of items, and I mean a lot of items that were $3 or less. When we were importing, we could do things like that. Now that I'm not importing and I'm having to buy retail, my average sale has gone way up, but the number of sales is less. So for me to pull 1,000 out of a show, I don't need to sell nearly as many products anymore as we did when we were selling $5 knives and $10 knives and $1 lures. You know, if you're selling a $1 product and you have a 450 item sale day, good golly, if they all sold for $1, that is a lot of packing, and that has literally happened to us before when we were selling lures. So why are you in this? Why do you do this? If you're trying to make $1 million, I got a couple other ideas that would probably pay off faster if you're willing to invest, and they don't have anything to do with beachfront property in Arizona. They're legit, but I don't think that you can produce that here by yourself. Now, if you have if you have 2 salesmen and yourself and 3 background people, that's 6 people. There is an amount of money that I think you could start out right out the gate and probably pull in your first million in a full calendar year, but not make $1 million. Because in this business, regardless of what people think, there are not enough man hours to take this to scale without going to buying goods straight away from someone else. There was a guy, Chris at Daily Refinement. I don't remember what his last name is. Actually, I don't know if he does it, or if he says it. But Chris was a reseller. And yeah, Chris B says, churning money is not making money. And I completely agree with that. And Showrod says it's a lot of work. And it is. Packing things up, carrying them to the post office. Those are both a lot of burden. So if you're strategic about what you do, and you can be close to the post office, or if you have a facility where it's easy for them to get to you and you do the pickup, where they come to pick it up, depending on your postal area, that might not be a bad idea. I am thinking more about it. But anyway, all right, so why do you do it? There's other aspects in making the money. Everybody wants to talk about the money, but some of my viewers are not going to be in it to make money. Some of my viewers are actually going to be in this for the social aspect of having a group that they can communicate with regardless of whatever their circumstances are in life. So I heard somebody was telling me the other day, I'm in a social group, for lack of a better term, in Masons, but and one of the guys was talking about how his neighbor was bragging that he had not left the house in 8 months. And as my buddy was going on about how he couldn't imagine that, I was about to go on about how great that sounded. Wow, imagine if me and the wife didn't have to leave for 8 months, you know? But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I do want to go see my grandson, you know. I do want to occasionally go to town and buy some pieces to build a spaceship to get in trouble with in my backyard or something. But, you know, there's always something. But each one of us has our different way of looking at life. To one person, 8 months in your own house not going anywhere would be misery. And to another, it would be pleasure. So I thought, well, there are a lot of my customers that might be doing this so that they have something to do while they're stuck in the house. And then there's other people that have accrued, for lack of a better term, a huge amount of stuff. And at some point, that person's like, hey, I could either make some money on this and buy more stuff, or, you know, I can get rid of this and I can move to that house down the street where you don't have to mow the lawn because they got a service. So we don't always know what the individual person out there wants to do in their whatnot career. So, you know, when you talk to people about whatnot, get their ideas. And if they ask for suggestions, then give suggestions. But if they don't. Because some people are completely content, even if they may be losing money. You don't know what their financial status is. They may be okay with losing it. They may have that much discretionary spending. I don't know. I don't. Fortunately, if you're smart about money and you own everything before you get started and you have no debt, there's no debt being accrued and getting all this stuff, and you look at your balance sheet one day and you're like, I don't owe anybody anything, and I have, I don't know, $20,000 worth of stuff back there. I'm going to start selling it. You're going to be in a much better place. And that's if you want to start a business and you've already got the stuff. If you don't, there is an amount, but you're going to have to buy retail goods. You're not going to go digging through the Goodwill bins and make $1 million, because you're going to be at the Goodwill bins for hours too. And all those hours are important. So why are you doing this? Well, if you're in my podcast, you're probably doing it because it's a business. Or you're going to turn it into a business as a means to accomplish another financial goal. Whatever that goal may be. Each of us, it's different. If you want to do it full time, start looking in the spaces where nobody is committed to your time and nobody expects your time anyway. Before you leave your job, make sure that no one's expecting you in that 3 or 4 hours you're going to be dedicating to this on a daily. If you do one good show a week, then you're probably going to, for 2 hours, and everything is pre-listed with good listings, quality listings with pictures, and would count towards premier status if sold. 2 hours, I'd say 1 a minute. You can maybe do 120 items, but 120 items is going to dry your lungs out. Trust me on that one. That's a lot of talking. Generally, I don't get that many items per show. I might only show 60 items in an entire 2-hour show. But I have a built-up inventory, and I am more like your corner store than I am a guy that just pops up on Whatnot and sells what he's got. And I have just short of 18,000 followers. I think Anthony Fraud told me today. It's just short of 18,000. I didn't even realize last time I looked, we were at 12. You think the wife could do this? One Tay writes, he thinks the wife could do this job. Well, start accumulating stuff. I would definitely recommend you do something you're into so that in the slow spells for your particular items, you can stomach it. The Starks used to say, winter is coming. And on Whatnot, at least as a surplus and outdoor gear dealer, and this is really weird, summer is coming. I will sell a lot less on Whatnot in the summer, even though I'm a surplus and outdoor gear dealer. I will sell less on Whatnot in the summer than in any other time of the year. That 3-month period, sometimes it starts in mid-May and ends in August, and sometimes it starts in June and ends in September. But that 3-month period where people's finances are otherwise committed to immediate indulgence activities that they can do with their families or friends, you're going to lose a lot of your customers due to inactivity. It's not your fault. Don't get depressed. But you better own everything. Own everything before whatever your version of that saying comes. So in surplus, summer is coming. That's our thing. I'll be telling Jacob that 3 months ahead of time, summer is coming. But last year was much different. We were able to, because of the Vegas trips and all of the rare items that happened there, we were able to really boost the sales up. And the fuel cans made a huge difference in our lives last year. So we had a couple big scores that helped us through that summer. But as I'm looking at this summer, and I'm like, I'm going to have to weather this one on my own. So the good thing is I don't have to worry about covering down on Big Man when he goes on vacation. But the bad thing is if I go on vacation, nobody's working. So you got to balance that out. So why do you do what you do? Can you handle a summer without any successful sales? And can you do it without owing anybody any money? I am going to preach financial responsibility continuously because I feel like the more I preach a subject, the better I get at it. So I was not dressed 30 minutes prior to this podcast. I have not been feeling well with my back, and I've been laying around. So 30 minutes prior to this podcast, I was like, I better go get dressed. And my wife said, why are you getting dressed? Are they even going to see you? It's the podcast. And I'm like, well, it's not that they're necessarily going to see me, but yeah, they could. But it's the idea of you got to practice what you preach. And one of the things that I preach is go be that CEO and take care of your business like it's business. What is your uniform at work? And in my business, you can come up with your own uniform. So, whatever it is, put it on. Go to work. You gotta practice what you preach. So, that's what I'm doing today. I was not feeling it. My back has been killing me. All right, let's check these comments, see if anything else goes down. All right, we got some questions. I'm so sorry. I missed a question back there. Who was it? Pakshana. I'm sorry, Pakshana. Pakshana wrote, what day do you feel like is your best day and time? She does stickers, and she's trying to decide on a day. Cinderella has been telling me that I do, in fact, have pants on. Cinderella, Wiseman's wife, has been telling me that she feels like I sound more positive about the outcomes on Mondays and Fridays. Like they seem to be bigger days. And I'm kind of thinking it might be because those are the only days where I've been pretty regular with doing shows. So now that I'm in the physical therapy, it's going to mess that up on Monday, but it's okay. I only got to get 6 sessions. I'm 2 sessions in. I'm going to get the 6 sessions, and I'm going to do what every good Jedi would do. I'm going to take that which I have learned and go off into the universe and walk with a limp. All right. The best slot in time. All right, Pakshana writes further. I'm working on trying to find a slot of time where someone isn't needing her, and that's her main issue. But, if you got a bazillion things already, what you do is you look at that 3 or 4 hour period somewhere that you could find and say, nobody requires my time, and nobody would call me unfair if I did that which I want to do for this small period of time. If you can do that and not be intrusive to everyone else, that's going to be your time slot. If you think you're going to play the dollar go game, though, no. You need to go into a popular category in prime time and to play the dollar go game. Yes. Chad Will writes that it sounds like the boat business. I believe he was talking about when I was talking about how the summer is the time when people can do the things is so weird. But his season may be in a different season as well. And then Showrod writes, having a regular time and not canceling shows helps a lot. It does. When Big Man and I were consistent, 1 o'clock and 5:30 for... You tell me how long it was. See what I mean? It was that long. We've been doing that. there were days where people would pop in and see us and then pop in the evening and be like, oh my God, are you guys still on? And we're like, no, this is the second show. But there have been days where we had done 6-hour shows, 8-hour shows, 10-hour shows, 12-hour shows. Mostly when we're trying to build our following. Now there's enough people that know where we are and know what we do that they have really carried me through this period while I'm getting all my stuff straight. But very shortly, we'll have a real schedule again. All right, so we talked about why do you do it. You know, you might know what your answer is. I don't know what your answer is. The other question is, what happens if you stop? So if you were to stop doing this today, you talked to me today and you watched this podcast and you were like, oh my gosh, his forehead is so bright, I'm never looking at Whatnot again. I'm done. Well, how would it impact you? Because that's an important thing. In 10 years, I probably will run for president. At some point, one of us here is going to have to run. At some point, one of us here, either the wife or I, one of us is going to have to run for Congress. Well, there you go. All right, so what happens if you stop doing it? Well, if you accrued all this stuff over time during your regular course of flea marketing and living your life, if you stop doing it, it's no big deal. Nothing changes. So if that's you and you're not too concerned about losing the stuff or not having or having to keep the stuff as opposed to not being able to sell the stuff, you know, it's no big deal. You're in it for the social, or you're in it to turn over the things that you're collecting when you're tired with them. You can roll on forever like that. If you're in it to make money, though, there are some key strategies that you're going to have to use. A lot of them are available out there, and then there's the copiers. So the reason I decided to do the podcast was every time I looked for information to see if somebody had enough reviews and enough numbers behind them to say yes, this is a good thing, or no, it's not. There's not that much information out there from anybody that's actually accomplished anything that I'm aware of, and the ones that have done it, most of them seem to be geared towards resellers and not retailers. And I feel like this is a natural evolution for any retailer to make in their life to come over to Whatnot. In-store sales are plummeting for most items. The number of traffic coming through the door is going down for all retailers. Look at these giant anchor stores that are just empty now. You want to film a Zompocalypse movie? The best place is a mall because they're already wastelands. So, like, I am so sorry, y'all. So, like, retail stores, I don't know. I'm looking to make a transition back into one. But at the same time, I'm also like, I have a lot going on. If I don't have to do this, I might be better off to just stay at what I do now and continue with my online sales, because eventually the in-store traffic will go down. All right. Well, I don't actually know what you do, Chris. You allude to a lot of things, but I've not seen any of it, so I don't really understand what you do out there in Mount Vernon. Yeah. All I know is everywhere that there used to be a surplus store, which is all that I'm concerned about, there isn't one. We have one exception in Richmond. The Whole Street Outlet is still there, but they mostly do business furniture, and then they do surplus on the side. So, Yeah. So if you have energy or you have enough courage to actually get on camera and do something, Whatnot is the place to be. eBay doesn't even have a class for what I do. Now, if you're into other things, electronics, women's clothing, things like that, that's probably transferable because there are categories on eBay for that. I can't speak to that. So, I only know what I did, and I don't run my race against others, and I personally don't give a fuck about anybody else's race anyway. So, when you are getting into Whatnot, you need to know what you want to do, because the results of others aren't going to be your own. You don't know what their situation is. A lot of the people that are running big shows could be in large numbers of debt. You know, when you go to SHOT Show, did you have the $3,800 to $8,000 depending on the package to go? If you did, you're already making some really good money, and you should probably start a podcast. But if you're making that level of money, you're probably not going to share with others. So, $8,000 for a person that only brings in $200,000 on a platform is definitely not the way to go. So, you can go there and you can make your promises. But the problem is, when you make your promises, they're delivering the goods, whether you have the money in the checking account or not. So, when you make your promise and you make your contribution or your commitment to $250,000 for the year, in their goods alone, you do have to pay for them when they arrive. When we did guns, that's how we did business. We bought all ours up front. I'm not going to say we didn't do regular ordering, but every 90 days there was a shipment of Smith & Wessons and Rugers. Chadwell writes, a lot of our marketing tailors to social media and online targeting. Foot traffic is for big box stores. It is. It's for the people that need the thing in their hand right then and there. I don't know. If you're on Whatnot, you're definitely not selling to the people that need it right then and there. One of my conversations over the weekend last week was actually suited to that. It was whether or not there was a need for retail stores anymore. And the person I was talking with was talking about immediate gratification. And they're aware of Whatnot. And there's a lot of things on Whatnot that they're into. But they do not go on Whatnot only because it's not immediate gratification. So what they were saying was, when I want to fix the itch, I've got to fix the itch immediately with the thing in my hand. And sometimes that means I have to buy a different thing to get it in my hand right now instead of fixing the itch with that original thing that you went there for. So we were talking about like fishing items. So if you have the itch for a new lure and you want a whopper plopper and you walk in there and there's no whopper ploppers, are you okay with buying a Johnny Flopper in its place? Because you want the immediate gratification. And he was saying he is the one that wants that gratification to fix that right then so he can go try whatever he wants to go do. And that kept him off of the Whatnot platform. But I'm trying to sell to the people that are like me and don't necessarily have Richmond is 40 minutes. Whole Street Outlet for me is an hour. But anything that takes you to Richmond is a half a day. And I'm only 45 minutes away. But I also don't speed. I don't run red lights, and I'm not in a big ass hurry. So, it's really about an hour. And there's usually not too many other stops. But if you have a online retailer that does what I do, you can get these things. And now that we're practicing with this idea of you can actually tell me what you want and I'll get it and bring it in, most of the people have actually bought what they asked for. There's only been two things that came in that the people did not buy to after asking me to order them. So I feel like there's a level of trust that comes with that on both parts. I gotta trust you when I order a $50 item that may not sell, and you gotta trust me to actually do what I said I was gonna do, and you can come back and pay for it, and we're good. I like that. So I like the idea of being an in-person store on the internet. But what I can't figure out is how to make money in the other 4 hours when I'm entering things in, and the 2 hours when I'm creating packages. Because that's wasted time. Well, let me rephrase. Not wasted time, but it's time that's not being as productive as it could if there were more sales staff. And all of my situations don't have a gigantic building to do business in that I can have a bunch of people in yet. So I'm like, a retail store for me isn't a big deal as much as just a building with a flat floor, 2 studios, and enough room to bring in a tractor trailer. So my goal is to not leave and go somewhere every day to go to work. My goal is to walk out in the backyard and go into the building and go to work. But that being said, there is a building right next to a post office in my town, which is 2.5 blocks away. So if I got that one, I'd ride a bike to work. So I'm wondering, that might be the one. You get one so you can ride a bike to work. I think that'd be fun. It might. Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, the world's not safe enough for me to ride a bike to work. So, scratch that idea. That'd be almost as dumb as buying one of those smart cars and driving across Interstate 70 3 days a week. All right, there was one last thing. Oh, what happens when you stop? So if I were to stop, I didn't finish that. So if I were to stop doing this tomorrow, nothing happens. I walk over there, I could put them in the boxes, I could label all the boxes, put them right back on the survival shelves, and nothing happens. But not everybody's in that position. So once you've made a commitment to be a business, sometimes you do accrue debt. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, there's always something involved that's a risk. You can give me all these scenarios or you can brag all the things you want, but there is always risk involved, even when you own everything. So the risk is, what if nobody had ever bought anything, and I just have to keep paying taxes on a building that I don't need? Or I got to keep paying utilities to keep the stuff fresh and nobody ever buys anything. So those are the risks. If you have so much money that you don't have to take risks, or that there is no risk, then what the hell are you doing on what, not listening to me, No more comments? All right. Well, the last portion of the questions you need to be asking yourself is, what did you actually get out of this experience? When you came to Whatnot as a seller, what were you going to get out of it? Or I should say, what did you think you were going to get out of it? We talked about why you do it. We talked about that you need to think about what would happen if you stop. And now I'm asking, what did you actually get out of it if you're a seller? And what did you think you were going to get out of it? And how were those different? Because the fantasy model that everybody sells you is that the buck and goes are going to make your life amazing. But my personal experience is, if you're not willing to do uncouth stuff, it's just not successful. Knowing the product and being able to explain it is huge. Showrod writes, he got a lot of unwanted stress. Pakshana writes, that's why I kind of like my idea. We already own the equipment because we have a sign shop. Exactly. Very low overhead as well. For that portion of it, if it's not business, it's just you. But Showrod, that is a very good one. A lot of unwanted stress. Yes. And that's the beauty of, if you don't have to do it, you don't have to do it. Shorten your shows out. Or not the length thereof, but maybe the frequency. There we go. Not the duration, but the frequency. Let's try space them out more. Have you ever tried that? And what is the stress from? Because if it's like customer issues, that will get better. You'll get better at dealing with it over time, but the number of customer issues will go up over time because the number of opportunities the post office has had to screw something up has increased. So if the post office is causing a lot of your angst, then think about it like this. That's not my problem. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did it the right way. I did it the first time. I did it on time. That got to the post office. I do not feel morally responsible for any of that. Now, if it's the unwanted stress of like dealing with the technology issues when it deletes things, or things just go randomly missing and aren't copying in the clones, yes, that is very frustrating, but it just is what it is, you know. A lot of the times I go back and I find those things in the inactives, and I keep telling myself I'm going to get in there and clear that one day, but there's actually 3,689 items in my inactives, so I got to admit, when I look at it, it feels kind of like eating a rhinoceros, and the rhinoceros already been out in the sun for a couple hours, and you know how that gets. You go eating a rotten rhinoceros ass, you're going to regret it. He's probably going to get some kind of sickness from that. Pac Shauna writes, I plan on only selling as long as it takes to sell a certain amount of stickers. I plan on using the stickers I have made up as examples. All right, so if you mean to show that number of stickers, yes. If you mean to sell that number of stickers, then you don't know what that time is. Because you could show 100 stickers in an hour and 20 minutes, you know, whatever. But they may not sell. So, you know. All right, and then she says, and then people can choose from a small amount of color choices. I keep track of each one and what color, and then making them once the show is done. Oh, okay. Your pre-sale. All right. I get what you're saying. That makes more sense. So the physical thing isn't in your... Well, the physical example's in your hand, but not the actual one they're getting is in your hand. Okay, that makes sense. That might actually work. I would... If you're gonna... Who are you selling to? Are you selling to trucks? Are you selling to cars? Are you selling to moms? Are you selling to dads? I would get a small notebook and start writing that down. Who am I selling to? No, Pac Shauna. No. When you are talking to that camera, who are you talking to? That's what you need to be thinking about. With each one of those models. So, like, let's say you've got an AR-15 version, but you also have flowers. You're not trying to sell the flowers stickers to the AR-15 sticker guy. So yes, while everyone can buy your product, yes, but who are you aiming at? And that's what you need to figure out, because sometimes category bouncing can support people that can't make a draw happen to that level. All right, so like, I don't know if there's a stickers category is what I'm saying, but if there is a stickers category, in the stickers category, who's going to be there? The people that you're trying to sell the designs to, or just people that buy stickers? So who are you trying to make your designs for is pretty much what I'm after. Because then you can category bounce. So like, people that dig ARs are also in not just in tactical gear. They're also going to be in knives and hunting. They're also going to be in other outdoor gear. They may be in some other categories I haven't figured out yet. If you know what they are, let me know, and I will go out there too. But that was something we needed to figure out who we were selling to. And when you build your show titles and you're putting up your cards, you should probably think about that. If you're going to build an AI card, it should probably represent the things that are actually in your shop. Because men don't like needless games. I'm talking about tactical gear. Men don't like needless games, and seeing all this stuff that's never for sale doesn't make any sense. So Pac Shauna writes, she basically made up a bunch of examples of stickers that might appeal to multiple people. Girly ones, patriotic, good old boy ones, etc. Well, good. Then you can go across a plethora of categories. And all right, and then that's necessarily, you might want a rigid time slot that works across multiple days, because then you could put in one day you're in this category, the next day in that same time slot you're in another category, and so on and so forth. And then you're featuring the items that are for that category, that fit that category, and then you have the rest of the shop, the ones that you're willing to make, are already loaded in the background. So people can be like, well, as long as I'm getting this big-ass AR-15 one, I think I'm going to get some flowers and put them on my wife's car. See how you just sold the flowers to the AR-15 guy whom you would have normally not met. And I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time, but that's the perfect chocolate and peanut butter. You know what I mean? The first thing of the day that they buy is the one that got them committed. If you could get an add-on, it's always a plus. Avoid people that are always talking how much smack that they're doing. If they're talking about just a bunch of smack about how good they're doing, I can tell you from a person that's extremely busy, if you're doing really well, you're not sitting around talking smack. You're doing your job. You're doing what it is that actually makes you money. So the smack talkers, don't listen to them. Don't think about what they're doing, because you're actually running your own race. You're coming from your financial perspective. They're coming from theirs. You know? How do they spend money? Do they spend money like it doesn't matter? Because that could be a sign one way or the other. If they're always talking smack, they're probably full of crap. Pac Shauna writes, yep, like selling radiators, do you need antifreeze? How's your hoses? Yes, I'm very poor at that. Big Man used to do a really good job at that. Used to do a great job. I'm not good at it. And he could do the switch too. So you came in asking about this. He'd be like, I don't have that model, but I do have like this thing that's somewhat similar. He could do that really well. So you really need to know your sales market too. You need to know your sales market. Show Rod writes, it's a hit and miss, and every show that I do is different. I would agree. Well, when you mean it's different in the response from the consumers, or it's different in that you try to put on a different arrangement or order sequence of the products? I've noticed that I get stuck when I get too much stuff behind me, or even at the other shop. I can't see anything. It's like there's so much stuff. I sometimes don't have a plan going in, or if I run the plan 15 to 20 items, after that I'm not paying any attention, you know, or I've lost my focus, or I didn't know where to go and I'm letting the conversation take over. 15 to 20 items is like my ADHD maximum. Plus, with the size of what I have right now, it's what I can fit in here. Now, at the other shop, we could line up 235 items generally. And that was a good show. Oh, yeah, it's never going to go the way you planned, but there's a lot of conversation, too. So if you have moderators that can keep track of that, it helps a whole lot. Helps a lot to me, anyway. I know when me and Big Man would be together for shows, we were extremely more productive. So I think it really... Show Rod writes, yeah, it does. I think you really need a second person in there. Moderators are great. Second person in the room with you, though, you can increase the feed time. You can bounce off each other. You can do a lot. Yeah, I was watching you a little bit yesterday. The tag on this shirt just keeps bothering me. We're going to cut that out. I'll never remember to pull that out. All right, so Pac Shauna writes, Ripe does a great job. Show Rod replied, yeah, she is a big help. Pac Shauna writes, I've thought about seeing if my buddy Joe wants to help, but I don't want to take up his time either. And Brian Flaw replies, I think it helps when you have everything shown in your shop for people to look at. I hate the shows that don't have their shop showing their products. Yes, but it's a gimmick and a trick to get you to be there. So, like, if you ask Whatnot for advice on what to do, the first thing they're going to tell you is show your face, don't move around a lot, and do a bunch of giveaways. So, I followed 2 out of those 3 when we had heard that from them and it worked. It does keep people entertained. But see, I never went any farther in the conversations with them because I've always seen it as we can only actually process so much per hour and we only have so many hours and there's other things that we do in the background that y'all aren't aware of. So, like, there's only so much time. So we just need to list everything. Just be honest up front. We'll just be the corner store where everybody else is playing the games. There's another one in the tactical gear that plays a lot of games with the they load products in the inventory and they'll say $999. And I'm like, I know you don't have 999 of those. You went from being a shoe store to being a pegboard hanging on the wall in the garage. So I know you don't have 999 of anything. So why do you have all these products listed at 999 quantity? Doesn't make any sense. It just tells me that they don't care enough about me as a consumer to actually tell me what they got for sale. And that goes back to the psychological trick of making you be there. So dollar goes, tricks to make you be there, showing your face, and doing a bunch of giveaways. Those are about the gist of what I understand Whatnot actually will coach you at. Like your section leader will be a coach for you if you make contact with them and they care about you. If they don't care about you, they're not going to be a coach for you. They're not going to offer you much assistance. They do have their peoples, you know. All right, Pakshana writes, that's why I plan on having pictures of every sticker in the shop and have a set amount of colors they can choose from. Then they can request the sticker they want out of the shop and then tell me what color they want. Or if I can figure out the whole POS system, plus the color varieties, plug the color varieties in there and they can select the color in there. Oh, the variations? Yeah, you just do it as a variation. That's not a difficult process. It will keep you from being able to run it a certain way, but I cannot pull up what that thing is right now. But there was one on MREs, and they had variation. Oh, no, it was sutures. Sutures had variations, and for some reason I couldn't do something with it until I removed the variations. I don't remember what it is. All right. So the 3 questions that we need to ask ourselves is, why do you do it? What's going to happen if you stop? And what are you actually getting out of it? Because, like, everybody got their own motivation. For me, it's to not work for the government anymore. And I don't actually have to do this anymore. I have another responsibility that I take care of, but it's not. I love it. It's not that hard other than going to the damn post office. That's killing my back. Chadwell writes, so what I've seen as far as having all the products, that they don't have the product and they are selling out of a warehouse somewhere else. Yes, there are. All right, so there's a couple things that you're not allowed to do here. You are not allowed to sell anything that you don't physically have in your hand. And you're not allowed to, what was the other thing? You can't do pre-sales. So you can't build up excitement on an item and do pre-authorizations to get your money ball to buy the products. Both of those things are not allowed by Whatnot. So, I'm not going to say your name, but sell me a product and you were in Florida and the product ships from Michigan. Yes, that's exactly what is happening there. Yes. But they could be ducking tax laws too. So, like, let's say they actually are in Michigan, but Florida doesn't tax whatever. So they go set up their business in Florida, or register their business in Florida at their Aunt Nene's address or Aunt Billy's address, whatever. I don't know. I can't remember if Florida is crazy or not. And then they're just doing business out of Michigan. That could be the case as well. Or maybe there's a parent company in Florida and a warehouse in Michigan. The question is it their warehouse? Because if it's not their warehouse, then they're breaking the rules. But if it is their warehouse, then they're not breaking the rules. I see people selling products that I know the companies ship direct. And some of the preloaded things that they put $999 on, I'm like, well, are they just hoping that people are going to buy those things and then they're going to drop ship them? Because I haven't seen this. I haven't seen any of those products actually sell on their shows. And then the other thing is they think that they're ducking the map by holding the products out of view, but the only person that cares that you're ducking map is the manufacturer of that product, and they only care when they find out. And when they find out, they cut your ass off. So if you try to build a business based on this idea or model that you know damn good and well is not sustainable if you ever get caught, because you get cut off, like, what kind of business model is that? Like, I would say it's fly by the seat of the pants, make money as fast as you can, and fuck everybody else. So clearly I don't do that. So. Oh, one last thing I wanted to talk about. Followers and giveaways. I've been telling Big Man since we started this, and Big Man agreed because he's even more frugal than I am or was. A giveaway just brings in the wrong follower. You know what I mean? So, like, why are you trying to attract somebody that only comes for giveies? Would they have known about you prior to that? You know, and promotions. Are the promotions worth it? I don't know. Depends on what category you're in. I've tried it a couple times and it was great. I've tried it a couple times and it was horrible. So I don't think that it's necessarily the promotions. I think it was the level of energy I personally had brought to the screen. I think it'd be awesome. I don't know how you ship produce, though. I don't know how that works. All right, y'all. Don't forget your takeaways. Why do I do this? What happens if I stop? And what am I getting out of it? Is it what I thought I was going to get out of this? Am I accomplishing what I thought I was going to accomplish? I am. I'm doing good. I can answer all those three things very well and to my own satisfaction. And Whatnot made that possible for me. Do I think it's a perfect system? No. I mean, they got some technology issues. Do I think it's a fair system? It is when you play in my game. Do I think there's a lot of fraud out there? No. I think there is some fraud, though. I think there's some shill bidding going on. And I think the knives category is a good place to see it, and the electronics category is a good place to see it. But beyond that, I don't know. I haven't really paid attention. Pakshana writes, there's only one lady on here that sells fresh fruit, and she seems to do pretty good. Like I said, I don't know. I just don't know how to ship it. Can you ship it? I know you can ship potatoes through the mail because my wife shipped me potatoes in Iraq through the mail. Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, and you gotta trust the mail to deliver your stuff in the middle of summer. Might be rotten. All right, y'all. Be nice to each other. If you're gonna get on Whatnot, think about what you really want to get out of it. We'll talk to you next time. All right, y'all. And now we can talk.